On WhatsApp, no one can see or hear your personal messages. Whether it's a voice call, message, or sending a password. To WhatsApp, it's all just this. So whether you're sharing the streaming password in the family chat or trading those late-night voice messages that could basically become a podcast, your personal messages stay between you, your friends, and your family. No one else. Not even us. WhatsApp. Message privately with everyone.
Abercrombie Kids Back to School stock-up sale is happening right now. Get 20 to 40% off almost everything, including their New Year jeans refresh. Shop everything on your back-to-school checklist in the Abercrombie Kids app, online, and in-store. Offer valid in stores and online August 1st, 2025 to August 5th, 2025 in U.S. and Canada. Exclusions apply as indicated. Online price reflects discount.
You are listening to Women's Running Stories, where exceptional women runners share inspirational stories about their running experiences.
I love the feeling of being able to push the mileage, and I'm grateful that my body allows me to do what I'm doing right now. I'll continue to do it for as long as it'll let me, but I really, really enjoy being out there because you're self-reliant when you're out there. There's no one else to depend on but yourself. And so I feel like there's just a certain strength to that. If something goes wrong, you have to figure out how to fix it. If you lose something, you have to figure out, okay, what am I going to do to replace it? That I have in my own pack. What can I use? But yeah, I just feel like there's just a certain strength to being able to do an FKT by yourself. And with nature, it's just so beautiful. Being in the mountains, and then the stars at night are incredible. And knowing that I got to this point by my own 2 feet, it's just, I don't know how to describe it. It's just amazing. It's an amazing feeling. My name is Jessica Pekari, and I am from Washington State. I actually just moved here in May. I am a mother, a wife, a veteran, an author, a teacher, a trail runner, and a backpacker.
I am really excited to have Jessica Pekari on the podcast. And she is going to share the story of her most recent fastest known time adventure, completing the 500-mile Colorado Trail. But before we hear more from Jessica, I do want to welcome you to Women's Running Stories. I am Cherie Louise Turner, and I am the host and producer of this podcast. Thank you so much for being here. Jessica has an incredible story. I first learned about Jessica when I was doing some research for Katie Gunvalson's story. Katie Gunvalson was a guest on Women's Running Stories a while back, and she told the story of attempting the southbound Pacific Crest Trail fastest known time. And she was thwarted very early on by fires, so she was not able to go after that FKT. But it did make me curious about who had the southbound record for the Pacific Crest Trail. And that's how I found Jessica. And as I learned a little bit more about Jessica's story, I thought, I need to get this woman on the podcast. Come to find out, she was planning this Colorado Trail FKT, so we pressed pause on having her on the podcast until the Colorado Trail FKT attempt was done. And it is no longer an attempt. She actually did it. So she is here to tell the story about this Colorado Trail FKT. A little bit about Jessica, just to reiterate some things. She is the mother of 3 and an Army vet. She served as a medic in Iraq. And she has Blackfeet and Mexican heritage, which does come into play in this story. And Jessica is an ultra runner and a hiker. She started exploring ultra running back in 2015, and the very next year she ran her first 100-miler. And then in 2018, Jessica went on to win the Triple Crown of 200 milers. And that consists of the Bigfoot 200 miler in Washington, which takes place in August. That is followed by the Tahoe 200 miler, which spans California and Nevada. That takes place in September. And this Triple Crown finishes up with the Moab 240 miler in October. So these are back to back to back every month. And Jessica won the Moab race, and she won overall. After that, Jessica did start going after FKTs. She made her first Pacific Crest Trail FKT attempt in 2020. She was also thwarted by fires, so she did not complete the FKT attempt that year. She did, however, write a book about her experience called Bombs to Trails, Interweaving Heritage, Life, and PTSD on the Pacific Crest Trail. I highly recommend that book. It is a really great read. Jessica returned to the Pacific Crest Trail in 2023, and that is when she set the FKT there. And in this episode, we will be hearing about the 500-mile Colorado Trail. And I'm going to give you a few details on setting the FKT for this trail. So with the Colorado Trail, there are 4 FKTs that you can set. There's northbound and southbound, and the Colorado Trail is a bit interesting in that roughly halfway through, and that's very rough, the trail splits. Part of it goes east and the other part goes west, and then it reconnects. These east and west sections are called Collegiate East and Collegiate West. So you can set the southbound Collegiate East or the southbound Collegiate West, or you could go the other direction, east or west. So there's 4 different options for the FKT. And Jessica hiked northbound Collegiate West. So that was going from Durango to Denver. And one note here, that is the more uncommon direction. Most people hike Denver to Durango, so going the direction Jessica was going in is less common. One other detail about the FKT that Jessica set is that she was going after the unsupported FKT. There are a few different ways you can set an FKT. You can get support along the way, or you can do it like Jessica did for the Colorado Trail and do it unsupported. And what this means is that you have to carry just about every single thing you need on the trail at all times. Jessica's going to get a little bit more into these details in her story, but the basic upshot is that she could not get any help along the way once she got going. And this includes no trail magic. If you're unfamiliar with this idea of trail magic, this is when other people leave food or supplies out for hikers on the trail to take with them. So Jessica could not accept any gifts whatsoever from anyone along the trail. So yeah, she was really on her own. I also want to mention that Jessica talks about Section 3 of the trail. The Colorado Trail is divided up into 28 sections, and Section 1 starts on the Denver side, and then the trail finishes with Section 28 on the Durango side. So Section 3, which is a little over 12 miles, is very close to Denver, so toward the end of Jessica's hike. 2 other little details about this story is Jessica talks about home being in Washington, and then she's also going to refer to home being in Colorado. So she's in the process of moving, or she has been in the process of moving. So don't get confused between those 2 things. Home has been in Colorado. It is now in Washington State. Washington is also where Jessica grew up. One final little detail is Jessica also mentions leukotape. I had no idea what leukotape was, and it is just a medical tape, and it is used to prevent blisters, which for Jessica, as you're going to hear, have been a problem. All right, we are now ready to hear from Jessica. And she is going to start this story with her first experiences on the Colorado Trail. So now here to tell her story of her 500-mile Colorado Trail, unsupported, northbound, Collegiate West, fastest known time adventure is Jessica Pekari.
I hiked the Colorado Trail in 2021, which was the year after my first PCT or Pacific Crest Trail attempt, FKT attempt. And I was given about 9 days. My husband's like, you have 9 days, you can backpack, do whatever you want in this 9-day time frame. And because he's active duty, timing is everything. And at the time we were living in Colorado Springs, and the Colorado Trail's right there. And I was like, this is perfect. And so it was just an easy drive to go to the trail. And I ended up doing about 300 miles in those 9 days. And I took the collegiate east route. And when I was backpacking it, I had told him, I'm gonna take my time on the trail. I'm not gonna push miles. But once I got out there, I just couldn't help myself. I was like over 30-mile days. And then when I finished, I told him, I want to come back, but I want to try for an FKT. And so that's kind of how that came to fruition, was just me going out there and having fun, for a few days. So last year, I attempted the fastest known time, and I got it was around 400 miles in, and I had the most severe blisters I've ever had in my life. It was just my feet were just one big blister. And then I also had a weird like sunburn on my lip, like I was just missing a layer of skin. And in 2020, I got rhabdomyolysis, and it really affected me last year. So rhabdomyolysis, it's a condition where your damaged muscle tissues break down, and then they release its contents into your bloodstream. But it can be caused by like taking too much medicine. It can be caused by too many electrolytes in your body, just not enough water. I actually didn't figure out that it was that had affected me until it was like too late. So I ended up gaining like 20 pounds of fluid last year, and I had to get off. But what I learned was I cannot take any type of pain reliever at all when I'm pushing these big miles. And, my body's just is going over or under so much stress. If I take any type of pain reliever, Tylenol, Motrin, Advil, naproxen, anything, it causes my body to swell up. So I feel everything, all the pain, all the aches. I have to feel it all. So I came back to the Colorado Trail this year because of redemption. I just had, once when you don't finish something, it just kind of nags at you. And I was like, I gotta go back. I gotta finish this. I'm more prepared. I know what to expect. I need to go back. So I chose the Durango to Denver route. And to be honest, the only reason why I chose that direction was just because when I finished, it would be an hour drive back to Colorado Springs. So it's just closer to home. And then I chose the Collegiate West route because it has more climbing. And I just wanted, I wanted to be more in the mountains. So the fastest known time I was going after was Durango to Denver, Collegiate West, unsupported. And with unsupported, you carry everything from start to finish. So all of your food, your clothing, everything. The only thing you're allowed to get or collect on trail is water. And you can throw away your food trash, but you cannot throw away any other gear. But yeah, you just have to carry everything from start to finish. You're not allowed to pick up any type of resupply. Trail magic is out of the question. You cannot take anything from anyone, and you also can't give anyone any of your stuff. So one of the biggest challenges of that is the weight of everything, because then it's like this big puzzle, just the build up to it. you have to make sure that you're going to be carrying enough food to get you through the 500 miles that you're about to put your body through. And then I think for me, one of my biggest challenges that I knew would occur throughout this hike would just be eating enough calories. I really struggle the first few days so I've attempted FKTs 3 times, 2 on the Pacific Crest Trail, and then this would be my second one on the Colorado Trail. And the previous 3, it was the same thing. Like the first 4 days, it's just hard to take in that amount of calories. And then also just being at altitude, I was really worried because I had moved from Colorado Springs, which is around 6,000 feet, to Washington State, which now I'm below 2,000 feet. And when you start the Colorado Trail from the Durango side, you're starting at 7,000 feet, and then you're just climbing up from there. And so I was really nervous going into it because I'm like, I don't know how my body's going to handle being at altitude, because I've been below altitude, for a month. So going into day 1, my husband actually taped my feet with Fluco tape, because with the Colorado Trail, for some reason, I always, like, there's just a lot of rain. Like, I don't know how to put this. Like, you're going to get rained on. You're going to get wet. If you don't, you're very, very lucky. So day 1, I'm feeling strong. And that is where I told myself I was going to try to push the most miles, just because I have, my legs are fresh. I'm feeling good. And I did. It ended up being my highest mileage day for the duration of the trail. I hiked 47 miles day 1, and I climbed almost 11,000 feet. And so, and I started around 5 a.m. and I hiked until 11 at night. And that was kind of my window that I gave myself for every day that I'd be on trail. I'm going to wake up at 4:30, and then I'll start around 5 and then hike until 11. My first big challenge was day 3, and that's when you're at altitude all day. You're like above 10,000 feet, and then you also hike up to the high point. And that day, I felt like I had altitude sickness. I was just really slow. I was dragging. I didn't eat dinner the night before. And I kept telling myself, like, you need to eat. But when you're feeling sick and nauseous, it's really hard to consume calories. And so that ended up being my lowest mileage day. I only hiked 31 miles that day, and they were slow. I just struggled so much. I had to take a lot of breaks just to catch my breath, because I'm like, this climb isn't that technical. It isn't that hard, but I can't breathe. So yeah, I would like take 100 steps on a climb, and then I would just stop and like take in those deep breaths, get that oxygen flowing. So that day was hard. And then day 4, I just knew it was going to be a hard day. The previous 2 times that I had hiked this section, I got dumped on. And so when I was approaching day 4, I was like, it's going to be a great day. It's going to be beautiful. There's going to be no rain. It's going to be awesome. I'm going to love it. And right when I got to where you have to climb is when the rain started. And this was around noon. And at that time, I have my raincoat on and I'm climbing. So you're kind of hot when you're climbing. But then as I get towards the top of this ridge, it just starts dumping on me. And so I'm like, I need to eat and I need to put something warm on. So I stop really quick and I put on my hoodie, but I'm like, I'm way too cold, like, to try to filter any type of water. It's freezing. I just want to get past this section. And it did not give way. The rain did not give way at all. So I get to the ridge, and it's just, I'm in like this huge cloud, so there's no view, and the sun is starting to set, and because of the clouds, there's no warmth. So I'm just freezing. And then I start my descent, and the descent is rough because it had rained. The trail is overgrown with vegetation, and then there's also a bunch of like huge shrubs that are really tall. And so when you're hiking through, they had been dumped on. So when you brush up against them, all of that water just falls on you. And so my pants are already soaking wet, my shoes are wet, my feet are wet, and it's just constant, just dumping water over and over. And then night comes, and I'm freezing, and I cannot get warm. And I fall because I slip on a rock. There's like all these huge boulders that you gotta kind of hopscotch your way across. And I slip on a rock and I fall, and I just hop up really quick because I'm like, I gotta get out of this section. And I ended up stopping early that night, around like 10:30, just because I was freezing. I could not get warm. And so I set up my tent, and I'm excited because I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get in my sleeping bag. I'm gonna get warm. But when I go to take out my sleeping bag, it's wet. And my down puff jacket is wet. And I was just like, no, this cannot be happening. And I'm like, wait, I have like an emergency little warming kit. And I carry, it's called an S-bit tab, and it looks like a piece of wax. And you can light this when it's wet, it doesn't matter. So I had grabbed this flat, like big boulder, and I had carried it and put it inside my tent. I was desperate. I was just so cold. I couldn't stop shaking. And I was like, okay, I'm going to light this little S-bit tab. It'll only take like a minute, to like kind of warm up my tent a little bit, and then I'll let it out. Like, I wouldn't tell anyone to light a fire in your tent, but I was so desperate. And so I go to light this thing, and my lighter won't light. And I was just, at that time, I just started kind of laughing, and I'm like, I'm deranged right now. Like, it's not lighting. I'm freezing. My lighter's not working. It just wouldn't work. And it was a brand new lighter. And, when I finished the trail, because I thought, okay, maybe it's the altitude. That's why it's not lighting. But when I finished the trail, like, it still wouldn't light. So I bought a broken lighter. And that's when I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm an idiot. Like, why didn't I check this? It's such a small little detail, but it affected me big time. So yeah, I didn't get to warm myself up. And I ended up tossing and turning all night, just trying to find a warm position. I was like trying to lay into a ball, trying to get, my arms against my body, my legs against my body. But my down puff coat was wet. I still put it on. And I had planned to take off my wet pants and just sleep inside my quilt like that. But I'm like, everything's wet. So I just slept in my wet clothes. I didn't even bother to remove anything. And, but yeah, I had a hoodie, an alpaca hoodie. That was pretty dry. And then, my raincoat. So I had on 4 layers, but so that night I just froze the whole night. I was just inside my sleeping quilt, just shaking, trying to get warm. It was a pretty miserable night. Yeah, so my Native American name is Ishputaki, which means flies high woman, and it gives me so much strength, especially when I'm going through something, as difficult as that. But when I'm on trail, I'm constantly praying, and I give offerings every day. And also when I accomplish something that I feel was really, really difficult for me, I thank the Creator for allowing me to do what I love so much, and to allow me to be able to hike on the land and see the animals and just be surrounded by nature and the sounds and the sights and just the environment, all the different sensations that you get from nature. I'm very, very grateful. And I carry, I carry, I just carry that gratitude with me the entire time. So when things are tough, I still say thank you because I'm alive and it's making me stronger. And one of the quotes that I tell myself when I'm suffering is, there's wisdom that comes alone through suffering. There's a lot to be learned from hardships. And sometimes I feel like we're given these hardships to learn from them and to also strengthen us. And I just try to get the most out of it. Even though it's negative, I try to turn everything into some sort of positive. So the next morning, I woke up and I was tired, but I was also really excited because I knew what was coming, which would be this 20-mile road walk, which is basically, it's like on this dirt road. And so I'm like, I just got to get there, and then you can kind of shut your brain off a little. You don't really have to focus so much on how technical the terrain is. You're just walking. And so when I woke up the next morning, I put on a dry pair of socks and I was ready to go, not really remembering that I still have like 10 miles of having to walk through wet terrain. And so within the first mile, I'm just like soaking wet again. My pants, they're doubly wet. My shoes are soaked. My dry socks are wet. So I'm just like, ugh. So I stopped and I hung my my other wet pair on the outside of my pack to dry. And then once I got to the road, um, then I took out my sleeping quilts and I hung that on the outside of my pack. And I also hung my down puff. And I also had wet gloves. So all my wet stuff was just hanging on the outside of my pack. So I was just this walking dryer. And I was very fortunate because it ended up being a really, really hot day out. Really hot. So it was a crazy extreme from freezing the night before to being just overly heated. But I was grateful for it because I was able to dry out all of my gear. And then I stopped like 5 times for blister care because the wetness and my feet, they just don't mix. So by then I had like, I don't know, a dozen blisters or something to take care of. And there was also a water crossing there where I took off my shoes to cross. But yeah, there's like no other way to cross this creek but to go, barefoot. And then the next day, I hit the collegiates, and I actually had a friend who was hiking. She was also FKTing, but opposite me. So she's going Denver to Durango Collegiate West. And so I started a day before her. And I was like, all right, this is going to be great. When we meet each other, like around the halfway point, we can high five each other and just see how we're doing mentally. And so when that time came, it was amazing. It was so great to see somebody and like to have a quick little conversation before heading back out or heading, back on the trail. But she had a really tough night. And so I just let her tell me about everything she had experienced. And she was telling me that she just hiked over Lake Ann Pass, and there was a huge snow cornice. And she's like, "Be really careful because I felt like I was gonna die in that section, um, because there's no actual trail to hike it because of the snow. So, and then there's this big scree field, and she's like, I slid down that, and I grabbed onto a boulder before going any further." And so she kind of scared me a little, really, because I'm like, oh my gosh, that's what I'm about to hit like in 20 miles. And then I'm telling her, like, okay, I need to get going because it's a 20-mile climb, basically. So I'm going to be climbing like the next 4 hours. And I need to get to this section before nighttime because once the sun sets, the snow starts to harden and then it becomes even more dangerous to try to cross something like that. And then and then we went on our merry little ways. And what was interesting was I end up making it to the top of that pass at 7 p.m. So the snow is still soft, but I didn't have any difficulties going down. And I don't know if it was just harder for her to climb up. Plus, she did it at nighttime in the dark, and I was hiking down during the day, so like our perspectives were completely different. Because once I got to it, I just kind of in my mind figured out a route that I would take, and then I'm like, oh, that wasn't bad. So yeah. So the area where I stopped last year was around Twin Lakes, and it's around 400 miles. So when I was approaching that area, I was just thinking about the previous year. And the previous year, I actually would have kept hiking, even being as swollen as I was. But my electronics, somehow my battery bank was on, and it just drained my entire battery. So it was more like maybe my ancestors were looking out for me, because I had no more power, and my phone was about to die, and without maps it's really difficult to hike the trail. But so going up to that point, I made sure all my electronics were charged, and I kept them in the side of my pack where I could like visibly see them, just to triple check, like, okay, they're still good, they're not accidentally turned on. um, and then when I got to that area, I actually stopped and I said a little prayer, just showing my gratitude that, hey, you know what? This is where I stopped last year, and I get to keep going. And after that, I didn't know what the trail was going to be like, and I couldn't remember anything from my 2021 hike. So everything was new to me, and I'm like, I don't remember. I don't know what to expect. This is going to be great. So I was actually really, really excited. So I have 90 miles left when I wake up in the morning. And by then, my pack is a lot lighter. I only have a few more days left. And so every day is about 2 pounds of food. And I started off with my pack weighing 33 pounds. And so by then, my pack should be less than 20 pounds. So I felt like the climbing got a lot easier, and I was starting to move a lot faster, even though I'm exhausted, I'm tired. I've only been sleeping like 3 to 4.5 hours a night. But I don't know, like I just felt like towards the end, I was just feeling stronger. But the trails are a lot smoother. And like I said, my pack was also a lot lighter. And then I'm also starting to drop in altitude. And I dropped, I think, down to like, you drop down to 6,000 feet, which is dramatic, after being above 10. And then with the collegiates, you're above 12,000 feet for 20 miles of that section. So just being able to breathe, it just makes a huge difference. So I'm like, I'm at a lower altitude. My pack hardly weighs anything. I know I can do 45. If I do 45 miles today, then I'll have 45 tomorrow. And so my whole day was just a go, 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 go. I took less breaks. I was just trying to push the mileage. I'm just really, really excited. And also, kind of a driving factor is food. I really want a hamburger. I really want some fries. I'm like thinking of all the possibilities of food once I finish. But at the same time, it's like this bittersweet, because I really, really, really love being out there. I'm like, I'm really, really enjoying myself. Even through all the trials and tribulations that I had, like, I'm having a great time. Not one time did I tell myself I want to quit. Like I'm enjoying every bit of my day as much as possible. And so I'm having the realization as tomorrow is going to be my last day. And so I start to get teary-eyed, and then I'm just like bawling on the trail by myself, like here, throughout the day, because I'm like, I don't want this to end, but at the same time, I'm ready for it to be over. So it's just like this roller coaster of emotions. And I was feeling pretty confident, but at the same time, I was I wasn't trying to jinx myself, because I'm like, anything can happen. You can trip, you can get hurt, something can pull. And at this time, my feet are basically, I'm walking on just bandages. My feet are just so bandaged. But when I started in Durango, I also hardly saw anybody. And the closer I got towards Denver, I started really seeing all of the other Colorado Trail hikers hiking towards Durango. So then I'm able to talk to a lot more people. People are asking me about the conditions. And then it was like around section 3. I'm hiking by at night, and well, the sun is starting to set, and I don't see anybody in this section, but it is so beautiful. It smells amazing. You have the trees, they just smell wonderful, and it just feels amazing. I don't know how else to put it. But I see a moose in this section. And I just got really excited, because I sort of have a little checklist in my mind of things I want to see on trail. And a moose was one of them. And the previous 2 years, I saw moose in the San Juans, but I didn't see them this time. And so I was a little bit sad about it. But yeah, this moose just pops out of nowhere, and I'm like, this is so cool. And then he looks at me, he's kind of just watching me a little bit. So I stop and I'm watching him. And then he takes off in the opposite direction and goes into the tree line. And then I hike up like maybe a tenth of a mile more, and there are all these beautiful elk just standing there, and they don't move. And it's because of the way the wind is blowing. It's like in my favor. So I'm like, they don't know I'm a human. They're just kind of watching me. So I'm kind of hiking a little bit close, but safety wise or whatever, I'm keeping my distance. But it was just so cool. There were just so many elk, and that was my last night of hiking. So I'm like, I ended it like on such a great note, and then it started to rain. And so I end up making the 45 miles that night, and I make it to camp, and I find the perfect flat spot. There's no rocks, nothing. Like, it's just an amazing end to my I guess the trail. And I set up my tent, and I'm in there, and I'm just like, this is it. This is my last night. And so I'm excited. And I thought maybe I'd be tossing and turning just out of excitement, but no, I fall asleep right away. I'm just tired. And so I go to sleep, and I set my alarm clock for 4. In my mind, I was like, maybe I'll just get up earlier and then start. But no, like, I was just tired. So I just kept the same routine, set my alarm clock up at 4, and I wake up and I pack up camp, and then I start off. And what was so great about the last day is I'm like, okay, now I can use my phone. And so I'm like, I'm going to record every 5 miles, and I'm going to post it. So I kind of did like a countdown from 45 miles up until the finish. And that was a lot of fun. I kind of kept my mind off of, I still have 45 miles, which is still a lot, to do. So my last day, it took me 15 hours to hike 45 miles. And once I got to, like, you have this long road walk at the end through Waterton Canyon, and there's a lot of people out just cycling and stuff, and some of them are cheering me on, like, hey, that's awesome. And people are kind of confused because I'm not going with the grain. Like, I'm going in a direction that's not normal. And so they're like, where are you coming from? And I'm like, oh, I'm Durango. So that was pretty cool to come across people excited for me to finish. And then I started actually doing a countdown on my phone of videos from mile 5 up until the finish. And I am sort of an emotional wreck by the time I get to mile 1, because I'm like, this is it. This is my last mile. I can't believe it. Like, I failed last year, and this year I came back and I'm about to be done. And my family is all in Washington State. And so, but my husband, he's still active duty and he's still in Colorado. And so he was the one that, dropped me off in Durango, and then he was picking me up. And so he was waiting at the trailhead for me. And yeah, that's who was there at my finish, was my husband. And it's not like I wasn't like trying to get people to watch me finish. I mean, even when I did the Pacific Crest Trail, it was just my mom that came and picked me up. So, because, for me, I'm like, it's not about the finish. It's about, the journey along the way. Like, so yeah. So he was at the finish, and he was so sweet. He brought me some sandals to wear, or like slippers to wear, and some clothes to change into. And so I changed into these like freshly nice smelling clothes. In my mind, I didn't think I smelled that bad. And I was like, I don't think I smell as bad as last time. And he's like, no, you do. So I change, and like I take some baby wipes and I like wipe my armpits, and all that. And then we go to a restaurant. So I'm like, I probably look like a hot mess, but I don't care. So we go to this restaurant to go sit down and have dinner. And I'm like looking at the menu. I'm like, I want one of everything. But I ordered a hamburger, fries, I had a beer, and then I ordered this platter of, it was like onion rings and fried pickles and bacon. It was like a whole thing of bacon. It was so good. And I just stuffed my face. It was a good end to the Colorado Trail for sure.
What a perfect ending to this story. And that does bring us to the end of Jessica Pekari's Colorado Trail FKT story on the podcast. A huge congratulations to Jessica on this FKT. What an inspiration and what an epic adventure. Thank you so much, Jessica, for coming on the podcast and telling this story. What a delight. And I know that you, like me, definitely want to keep up with Jessica and her future adventures, which are coming soon. She has more FKTs in the works, and she will be announcing those soon. So look to the show notes for links on how you can keep up with Jessica and also how you can buy her book, Bombs to Trails. I also know that Jessica has been working on the audio version of this book, and that is scheduled to come out this month, August of 2025. So if you want to listen to the audio version, if you want to read the book, that will all be available to you. And that brings me to the end of this episode. Thank you so much for listening. I always appreciate you coming here and listening to women's running stories. I also appreciate when you share this podcast with someone else you know will like these stories too. So thank you. That is going to do it for me. I'm Cherie Louise Turner, the host and producer of Women's Running Stories. And until next week, I wish you healthy, joyful, adventurous strides forward. Women's Running. Women's running stories.
Everything feels a bit uncertain right now. A few months ago, you never would have expected eggs being factored into your monthly budget. New sources of stress equal more opportunities for breakouts to strike. Luckily, Mighty Patch Original shrinks the look of pimples in just one use. We'd say that's a pretty good deal. Shop Mighty Patch at all major retailers.